Welcome to a new episode of the Straight Wrestling Voices of the Indies podcast. I'm your host, Morbo, and with me, as always, everyone's favorite US independent wrestling fan, Sebastian.
Thank you as always for the introduction, Morbo, and welcome to this week's episode of Straight Wrestling Voices of the Indies. And our guest today is known as both a manager and a wrestler in the wrestling scene of the southeast of the United States, from promotions like Renegade Championship Wrestling and from TWE, and especially from the Monday Night Crash Course shows, among other promotions. And we are very happy to have her as our guest today. And with that, welcome and thank you for taking the time to be our guest today, Kat von Frankenstein.
Hello.
So, for the people who don't know who you are, who is Kat von Frankenstein?
Well, I am Jake Murphy's manager, and I also do some wrestling a little bit, and just generally going out there and having a good time. So,
How would you describe your character to people who don't know who you are?
I would say a little bit of Baroness from G.I. Joe. It gets a little niche, but like I've pulled a lot from like a book series called the Lock Tomb series. So there's a little bit of Harrow from that series and Gideon. Just very authoritative at times and take control and offer support when I'm managing.
How did you get into wrestling as a fan, but also as a manager and also as a wrestler?
Well, I would say wrestling's always been in my orbit. I was friends with a promoter for over a decade, and before I even like went to a wrestling show, and he introduced me to Jake, and then one day I was just like, "Hey, you okay if I go and train a little bit?" And I went over to that promoter's house and just started learning to train, and then I did start going to Jaden's, and then actually the story of how I started managing, I didn't know I was going to go out until 5 minutes before they sent me out with Jake. And that was kind of the start of my career.
Where are the differences, but also maybe the similarities between being a wrestler and a manager?
I do think it is very helpful as a manager to learn wrestling, even if you aren't going to get in the ring and wrestle, because it is important. I think it is important for me to understand match structure because I know when to come in as a manager and help or pull off a spot or something like that. And then as a wrestler, like, again, you do need to understand match structure, of course. So there's similarities there. Also knowing how to like do certain things in between wrestling and managing, I think is important. So there are similarities in managing and wrestling. There are differences, of course, too. But I do think it is important to understand everything as a whole. And there are things that I've learned training for wrestling that has tremendously helped me in managing.
Do you have any role models you were inspired by or that you look up to both as a wrestler and a manager?
As a wrestler, Bull Nakano has been a big inspiration to me. As a manager, Sherry Martel and Jim Cornette have been like huge influences on me. Also, like as a mentor, Dan, the Reverend, he's been a big influence on me, and I do look up to him a lot. A lot of the Joshi wrestling has been really influential. Like when I started watching Joshi wrestling, like I looked at that and I was like, that's how I want to be as a wrestler. I'd say other wrestlers that have inspired me, just some of the wrestlers I've been around and trained with have been very inspirational to me. Like watching some of these kids like find their passion has lent me a lot of passion. I think watching Bella Sky has been a big inspiration to me and big encouragement to me watching her break into the scene. She's wrestling on Crash Course right now, and she's been honestly a huge inspiration to me as well.
Do you have an athletic or artistical background that helped you or still helps you while training?
Yes. I actually trained in Nishinryu karate since I was 9 years old. So I am a 4th degree black belt in Nishinryu karate, and that has influenced my style of wrestling as well. So I do have a very heavily martial arts influenced style when I get in the ring.
As someone who invests very much into her character work, do you see wrestling as a kind of performance art?
Do very much so. I've always approached it in the sense of it being a performance art, and I kind of see it as being like a stage play. We go and we put on this wonderful production or this very dramatic production, and you get the crowd into it. And I definitely do see it as very much a performance art.
I first got to know you as a part of TWE, of course, and especially the Crash Course shows, which usually take place every second Monday. What kind of influence did and does still the Crash Course shows have on you and your career?
A very big influence. It's a great place where I can learn. I can go out there and try things that I want to try. It's a very good learning experience, and I think you should always strive to continue to learn things. And I try to set out for every crash course. I try to take away something that I've learned from that night, and it gives me experience with interacting with the crowds and getting to interact with other wrestlers, and it also meeting other wrestlers. It's been incredible people that have come to Crash Course that I've got to meet and work with, and it's definitely, I'm always learning from Crash Course. I'm still learning from Crash Course.
In TWE, you have been involved in storylines, like, for example, during the feud between Jake Murphy and Big Dave, where you and Mama Wanda were important parts of the story. As a manager in 2025, what kind of philosophy do you have as a manager, and how would you say do you interpret your role? What constitutes a good manager for you, and how is this maybe different or similar compared to the times of the old school wrestlers from like the 80s or something?
I would say, like, my philosophy as a manager is I'm there to support Jake as a manager, and I'm there to help get the crowd into the thing, whether I'm a bad guy or a good guy. I'm there to get the crowd up, and I think that's was very much what a lot of the '80s managers did. Is they were there to hype the crowd up, or whether they were bad or good, they were there to hype the crowd up and get over what needed to be get over. I feel like I have pulled a lot from '80s wrestling and learned a lot because, like I said, Sherry Martel has been a big influence on me, and also to enhance the performance. I feel like as a manager, you should strive to add something to the performance as a whole, not to take away from the wrestler, but to just enhance the performance.
Would you maybe say as a follow-up question that also like the regional style, like the typical Southern wrestling of the 80s and 90s was an influence on you as well?
Oh, definitely. I definitely would say, like, I grew up more around the '80s wrestling. I always grew up hearing stories about my great grandmother. I never got to meet her; she passed before I was born. But like, I've always grew up with stories of hearing how like she was the breadwinner for her family, and wrestling was that one moment that she had to herself, and you left that woman alone when she was watching wrestling. So I definitely did grow up around the '80s wrestling, and it definitely has had an influence on me.
Besides TWE, I especially associate you with Renegade Championship Wrestling from Chatsworth in Georgia. What would you say? What does Renegade Championship Wrestling for you both personally and professionally mean?
For Renegade Championship, it's been a great place where they have thrown me out there, and I've got to learn so much there. It is a very different crowd than TWE's crowd. Um, so I get to kind of play with different aspects of my character. I've got to kind of be introduced to very different style of wrestling and style of booking, and it's been a great influence on me to be able to go out there and be able to work with different styles.
How would you describe your development or your journey within Renegade Championship Wrestling from debuting to the position you have today within the promotion? Were there like milestones where you were feeling like, oh, now I have achieved something in this promotion, now I'm on like the next level, or now people recognize me more, or something like this?
Yes, certainly. I've recently become a babyface, and I would say that's my. I never thought I would be a babyface there, and interacting with some of the little girls and some of the kids. That's been a big accomplishment. I'm kind of working backwards here, but also like being able to like do a program with wrestlers and other managers and getting them helping them achieve what they wanted to achieve, and we both just like accomplish a program that gets over with the crowd, and the crowd keeps wanting to come back. And often like I hear the crowd saying they want to see what happens next with Jake Murphy and Kat von Frankenstein, and I feel like that's a big milestone too. I never thought people would want to see me, and especially not being a good guy or a baby face, like they do want to see me now. And but before, even like when they said they want to see Jake and Kat von Frankenstein show up and get their comeuppance, that was I consider that an accomplishment.
Talking about you being active for Renegade Championship Wrestling, and maybe also a bit of a deep dive further into what you're doing there and the development and everything I already referred to. On September 9th, you had a match in Renegade Championship Wrestling alongside Jake Murphy against Brent Banner and Amara. Can you tell our listeners something about like the story behind that match and maybe also the match itself?
The story behind that match, let's see, it's September 9th, that would be the cage match. So the build up to that, Amara had been getting involved in a lot of our stuff and caused us to lose. So we ended up booking a match between me and Amara. I loved working with Amara. She was wonderful.
Would you maybe say that this was also, as a follow-up question, your most important match or story you had so far? Maybe in Renegade Championship Wrestling, but maybe also in your career?
So yes, it was definitely something that kind of gave me that. I would say that was my first one-on-one match with someone, and I did learn a lot from it. I learned that I felt like I was more capable than I think of myself. Like I felt like I am able to do this, and I am able to go out there and wrestle a match. Uh, and I think we did a good job getting the point across to the crowd. Uh, the crowd was really into it. We gave them what they wanted, and I felt like moving forward that yes, I can go out there and wrestle in the ring.
A third promotion where you are active for is Ego Pro Wrestling. How would you describe the role that you play at Ego Pro, and how did you get your start in the promotion?
Barry is actually the booker I'd known for over a decade. And he was the one that threw me out as a manager for like, I didn't know 5 minutes and he just sent me out, and he basically launched me into that career. I would describe like my character is very different there than any of the promotions I work. I'm very much a comic book villain, and I really do enjoy that. It's very something very much that I get to play with there, and it's been a really good experience. And as far as my career there, um, it's nice to go to like a really small town. I actually grew up um, 10 minutes away from that town. So it's nice to go to this small town and pull a big crowd in and put on a big show for them.
When you say that your character is different, then maybe also a question in this context, is this something that you feel like, okay, there was a different crowd, so I have to adjust my character? Or is this something that the promoter maybe tells you to, oh, maybe change it in a bit? Or how is like this process going?
I've always maintained there's a core to my character, and I will just accentuate certain aspects of that character depending on the crowd. Not just because between TWE, Ego Pro, and Renegade Championship, there's different things that speak to those crowds. So I will always maintain that the core of my character is there, because I don't want to have I want more substance to my character, but I will accentuate different points of that character depending on the crowd.
You're not only the manager of Jake Murphy, but you are also the manager of other wrestlers. For example, just recently you were the manager of Zero in his Athens street fight against Tiger Kid as a part of Ego Pro. Back in Black. What are your thoughts on this match?
It was a really fun match. It was definitely one of those matches where you can cut loose a little bit, with it being a street fight. I think it went over really well. The crowd was really into it. They enjoyed it. The kids enjoyed it. Um, I had a little bit of a tussle with Tiger's manager, um, but overall, that was a wonderful match. I was proud of how that match turned out.
And would you say that you work or maybe also prepare different in such an environment and for such a match, like a street fight compared to, and I put that in quotation marks, regular match?
Um, I, Everything is very much improvised. I would say with Ego Pro, there's less mental preparation because usually we put things together like right before, so there's not as much time to prepare. So a lot of times I end up improvising, which kind of pulls out a different like it does give me a challenge, but also pulls out a different performance from me, and I feel like it does help me learn. Like you don't always have a set thing.
On August 31st, you had your North Carolina debut when you appeared as a part of the Pride Wrestling Alliance debut show, Bloodbath and Body Shots in Asheville as Jake Murphy's manager who wrestled against Wine Mantis. What can you tell us about this experience as a whole and maybe also about the match in particular?
It was a really, really fun match. It was definitely it was a little more less PG 13 than what I'm used to working at TWE. But it was definitely a place where you can like cut loose a little bit and have a little bit of a different match. Ryan Mantis was great to work with. And working with Prod Wrestling Alliance was wonderful to work with. And it was basically just we showed up, had a good time, and there was I wouldn't say less pressure because like I always maintain I want to go out there and give 110% of myself. And no matter what size the crowd is, I want to give 110%. Um, I will also say like it is a little bittersweet. Um, we had a wonderful match there, and unfortunately, with everything that happened in Asheville, North Carolina, that venue is gone now. So that's been. I feel like this match will hold a place with me for the rest of my career. So
As far as I know, this was the furthest you have traveled so far for wrestling booking. What does this booking meant for you, both professionally and personally? You already elaborated on the personal aspect, but maybe also professionally.
it is the farthest we've traveled. I was wondering if I would be able to have the fortitude to go out there and travel. I enjoyed traveling. Um, I don't know if it's going to be for me. I think I'm definitely like someone that will stay primarily local and sometimes venture out. We do plan on going back to Asheville to wrestle for Pride Wrestling Alliance. Um, but with them being so infrequent, I don't see us traveling a whole lot. I'm a little bit of a homebody, so
How does it feel to be, because this was like the debut show, how does it feel to be at the debut show of a promotion compared to like being at established promotions like Ego, Renegade Championship Wrestling, or TWE?
I enjoyed it. It's very different, but it's fun to like go and help debut with a promotion and help them figure out what's going to work for them. And I'm very proud to be a part of a promotion that's just starting up. And it's been a great experience. It is the first one I've debuted at with that being their debut. So it was a really good experience.
My last question before Morbo will talk to you about what's next for you. Are there any promotions or maybe freelance wrestling events that you have been a part of that you maybe can't find online?
Um, there's none. I've been just I've primarily worked for TWE, RCW, Ego Pro, and then PWA. There's not really um any others I've really done a whole lot of work for.
You have established yourself at TWE and especially at TWE Crash Course, at Renegade Championship Wrestling, and at Ego Pro. Are there any other promotions in the Southeast region where you would like to be active in the future?
I wouldn't mind. I know some of the TWE people do go to GCW, or it's not something I've really put a lot of thought into. I've just, whatever opportunity comes up,
And maybe promotions that are further away from your home region in the upcoming future?
I would love to, I would love to go to Japan. I don't know if that's something that will ever happen. I would love to work in Japan. I don't even really mind if it's like a small local town promotion, or I'm not the most ambitious person, so I've not really considered big promotions or anything like that. I'm just happy to be out there and working and doing wrestling and or doing managing. So it's definitely something I probably do need to sit down and think about. But
And what are your goals for the future in general as a manager, but also as a wrestler?
my goals, I would say, just go out there and give 110 to the crowd. Um, moving forward, I would like to at least be able to wrestle occasionally, wrestle a match here and there. I do fully recognize my age and is a challenge. So I'm just here to do it as long as I can. I really enjoy it. I'm very passionate about it. Like I said, I'm not terribly ambitious. I do recognize my age as a challenge, and I may not have as long as a career as many people, but just being there and being able to do it, and I'm just going to go as far as I can and as long as I can.
Are there any upcoming shows that you will part of?
Yes, we do have a crash course this Monday. Monday the 13th. We do have a big match. It's a blood match, first blood match against Damon Stryker, and I'll be managing Jake Murphy, and that should be. I think it starts at 8, and it will be streaming or not streaming. It won't be streaming on IWTV, but it will be posted to IWTV later. So that will be something that will be available for people to watch.
Okay, Kat, that's it. We're at the end of the interview. And as always, the stage is yours. You can plug and promote anything you want.
To plug and promote, watch Crash Course on IWTV. We do have a show that needs to be rescheduled. TWE was supposed to be having a Saturday show this past Saturday, and they're having to reschedule it. I'm not sure when they're rescheduling it. Anything else to plug? I don't really have any media endeavors of myself. That's pretty much all I have right now. I'm sorry.
Thank you very much for coming on the show, Kat. It was a very cool show, and both Sebastian and I are really looking forward to see your appearance at TWE in the future.
Thank you. And thank you for having me.
And also thank you for me, as always, to you, Morbo, and to you, Florian. And also to you, Kat, I think was very interesting to hear about also your inspirations for your character and working as a manager and a wrestler. And of course, a big thank you also to our listeners. Thank you for listening to us, and I hope you will listen to us in the future again. Goodbye.